Good morning, everyone. So, for today's discussion, I am going to present to you the forest conservation and policies and programs today. So, this presentation will give into the Philippines forest conservation policies, programs, and initiatives highlighting success, challenges, and opportunities for sustainable forest management. But before we delve into that, here's our objectives for today's discussion. For our first objective, we have to understand the current state of forest resources in the Philippines. Second is to evaluate the effectiveness of existing forest policies and their impact on biodiversity and local communities. And lastly is to propose recommendations for improving conservation management in the Philippines. More than half of the Philippines' landmass is classified as forest lands, making the country a mega diverse area in terms of tropical forests and biodiverse ecosystems. In fact, forests used to be one of the most richest natural resources in the Philippines. In 1990, more than 70% on average of the island's total land area of 30 million hectares were covered with forest. However, decades of lax legislations promoting extractive industries have led to significant reduction in forest cover. In 2001 to 2002, representing a 7.8% decrease in our total tree cover of approximately 18.864 million hectares na lang. So this loss contributed to 848 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions. Like most of the forests globally, a huge chunk of the forests were lost in the country is due to urbanization and community-driven deforestation. As of 2022, Philippine forestry statistics estimated that the country has a total forest cover of 7.2 million hectares or 24.7% of the country's landmass, which is way below the 7.8 million hectares worth of forest cover we had back in 1934. So this showcases just how much of our forests we have lost over the years and how serious of a threat deforestation is to the country. Causes of forest destruction. So there are many factors that cause forest destruction, including deforestation for agriculture, plantation, and development. So deforestation it really damages ecosystems, reduces biodiversity, and disrupts the water cycle. So forest loss increases the risk of erosion, flooding, and reduces the availability of fresh water, as well as worsening the global climate change. Also, forest fires, especially if kanang naiuban nga mag-wildfire sa ubang country, kanang init na kaayo, then napuy ko man nga magkasunog if kanang because of human activity nga kanang magsunog gud kay iano nila kanang himuon nila ng umahan. So ano pa na siya, this forest maka-destroy pa na siya sa atuang forest. And last is the illegal logging and the timber industry. So for the main harvested species of trees in the Philippines as round logs in order of importance is according to FMP 2009. First is the Falcata Mangium or the Acacia Mangium with 118,758 meter cube. Mahogany. Next is the Yemeni or the Gibellina arborea. Pagras or the Eucalyptus diglopta. Next is the Para rubber or the Hevea brasiliensis. next is the rain tree or the albizia salmon with 3,436 meter cube, ipil-ipil, and others, which may include kakawate, marang, mango, durian, auri, red gum. So this infographic provides an overview of the forest sector, especially in the policy trends in forest protection and rehabilitation in the Philippines. So timeline of forest rehabilitation in PH in 1990s to the 1940s. We have the colonial era, which the programs did not involve the communities and even evicted them from lands undergoing rehabilitation. And the government implemented 35 projects in the zone covering 26,000 hectares. In 1950s to 1970s, we have the national era, which the forest programs include the following. First is the kaining management and land settlement regulation. Second is the forest occupancy management program. Lastly is third is the family approach to reforestation program, and lastly is the community tree family program. In 1980s to 1990s, we have the internationally supported era. There was an increased funding for forest rehabilitation from international organizations. So more local and national projects were carried out in the Philippines with increased participation of non-government groups, communities, and the private sector. Yeah, 2000s to early 2000s to 2019, we have the participatory era. So tinatawag natin siyang participatory era because forest rehabilitation programs became more diversified and entailed participation of local communities, giving them more room to obtain the proper benefits. There was also an increase in technical knowledge and monitoring. So forest-related policies in PH, we have three Republic Acts, 7 combined executive orders, proclamations, and presidential decrees, 87 memorandums, circulars, and administrative orders. So these policies, however, were focused mostly on extractive industries. Only a few laws dealt with forest protection. We all know that the forests are the lungs of our planet, and conserving them is crucial for our future. So let's dive into the policies, programs, and initiatives driving sustainable forest management. First is we have the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, or the DENR. Is the primary government agency responsible for the conservation management, development, and proper use of the country's forest. The Forest Management Bureau, or the FBM, is also one of the staff bureaus of the DENR. Is the government agency responsible for providing technical guidance to the central and field offices for the effective protection, development, and conservation of forest lands and watersheds. The primary law governing Philippines forest lands and forest resources is the Presidential Decree Number 705, Series of 1975, otherwise known as Revised Forestry Code of the Philippines. PD 705 mandates for the proper classification, management, and utilization of the land, the public domain, to maximize their productivity to meet the demands of the country's increasing population. We have also the executive number 192 of 1987. We have the reorganization of the Department of Environmental, Energy, and Natural Resources, remaining it as the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, and the creation of the Forest Management Bureau. We have also the executive number 23 of 2011, the declaration of moratorium on the cutting and harvesting of timber in natural and residual forests. Also, we have forest-related policies, executive number 26 of 2011, the National Breeding Program. We have the Republic Act number 10690 of 2015, or the Forestry Profession Act, and Executive Order 193 of 2015, the Expanded National Greening Program. So, in 1995, the Executive Number 263 was issued adopting community-based forest management, or the CBFM, as the national strategy to ensure the sustainable development of the country's forest land resources and providing mechanisms for its implementation. In 2004, we have the Executive Order number 318 was issued promoting sustainable forest management in the Philippines. In 2011, we have the Executive number 23 was issued declaring a moratorium on the cutting and harvesting of timber in the natural and residual forest and creating the currently inactive anti-illegal logging task force. But on the same year, Executive number 26 was issued declaring an interdepartmental convergence initiative for a national greening program. Executive number 26 provides that the National Green Program shall plant some 1.5 billion trees covering about 1.5 million hectares for a period of 6 years from 2011 to 2016 in the specific lands of the public domain. The NGP was extended and expanded until 2028 pursuant to Executive number 193 series of 2015. So, as you can see in our infographics, the National Greening Program accomplishments from 2011 to 2016, they have nakapag-ano sila ng 1.37 billion seedlings planted, 1.44 million jobs created, and around 1.66 million hectares covered. The NGP is a massive forest rehabilitation program started in 2011. Its permission was extended to 2008 through EO 193 signed in 2015. However, the NGP was reported to be effective only during its first 2 years. After that, replanted trees were dying. Most of the seedlings planted were also commercial species, not endemic species. Field personnel attributed this to the lack of site species matching in the implementation. Okay, moving on to the legal rights to harvest. So, under Section 77 of Revised Forestry Code 3815, any person, whether natural or juridical, may harvest timber or other forest products from any forest land, or timber from alienable and disposable public lands, provided the said person has authority in the form of license agreement, lease, license, or permit. So, dapat na kayo na ng mga requirements na ipakita sa DNR. Okay, likewise, with the issuance of Executive Number 23 in 2011, declaring a moratorium on the cutting and harvesting of timber in the natural and residual forest and creating the anti-illegal logging task force, only planted trees will be allowed to be harvested with different requirements and proper documentations depending upon on the tenure instruments. So we have the CBFMA, or the Community-Based Forest Management Agreement, under DAO number 2004-29, DAO number 2000-29, and DAO 2001-17. Also, dapat may requirements kayo under Industrial Forest Management Agreement, IFMA, under DAO 1999-53 and DAO 2020-04. Also, you have to have these requirements: the Social Industrial Forest Management Agreement, or SIFMA, under DAO 1996-24 and DAO 2004-30. Private titled alienable and disposable land under Dow 1999-20. Dow 2020-18, in this policy, a third-party tree plantation certifier or a registered group or corporation engaged in forestry services and registered or accredited by the DNR to certify that the harvested logs and tree derivatives for transport are planted from tree plantations. So, dapat namoy mao na iyong ipakita. In case of naturally grown trees that should be harvested, such as in certificate of industrial domain territory and certificate of land title under the Indigenous People Rights Act, areas Dow 11-2001 shall apply for tree cutting, harvesting, and transport permits. So before dyan mo kanang ipagabas ba ninyo, ipaputol ba na ninyo nga kanang sa pala may kahoy sa inyo, ha? Yun na may ipaputol. Dapat magwa sa dyan mo permit sa DNR. In case of social obligations, the permit tenurial holders are required to comply with the terms and conditions of the instruments, particularly those pertain to social aspects such as public health. So our first issue, we have the policy in the forestry sector lack adequate provisions for institutionalization. For policy landscape, we have to support the passage of the Sustainable Forest Management Bill for more progressive sectoral initiatives. So our recommendations to ensure policy translation and grounding within the DNR and LGUs, address policy overlaps between forest protection and extractive industries including mining and forest harvesting. For our second issues, we have enforcement and legal remediation related to forest protection policies have been weak. So, capacitate the LGUs and the DNR's provincial and community environment and natural resources offices, provide enforcement personnel with hazard pay and enough incentives, straighten the legal services within the DNR, and shorten the adjudication processes, promote complementation and cooperation among the DNR, LGUs, and law enforcement units. The third issue is the monitoring and evaluation of forest initiatives have to be strengthened. For example, is to promote the Lawin Forest and Biodiversity Protection System as a model for monitoring and evaluation of forest protection programs. Lawin Forest and Biodiversity Protection System is a web-based mobile app that helps the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources protect forests and biodiversity in the Philippines. Next is to pursue partnerships with community members and civil society organizations toward forest protection and adopt appropriate technologies for forest products, inventory, and tracking. Lastly, prevalence of planted exotic, fast-growing tree species over native and endemic ones points out issues between forest production and forest restoration. So, we need to ensure site species matching as part of the enhanced NGP, establish a nursery for native and endemic tree species to promote ecological integrity and forest restoration, and have a clear delineation between forest production and forest restoration activities. For the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, dito na belong ang forest restoration in Sustainable Goal number 15, Life on Land, which to protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forests, combat desertification and halt and reverse land degradation, and halt biodiversity loss. For the benefits of reforestation for the environment, reforestation provides immediate and long-term benefits to the environment, such as absorbs carbon dioxide and reduces greenhouse gas emissions, improve air and water quality, restoring natural habitats for flora and fauna, and reducing the risk of flooding and soil erosion. For the impact of reforestation and biodiversity, reforestation helps restore habitat for many species that are threatened with extension due to deforestation. By restoring forest, biodiversity can be protected and endemic species can thrive again. For examples of species that benefit from reforestation efforts are the birds, mammals, and insects. Reforestation. Lastly, reforestation and climate change. One of the base way. Um, lastly, reforestation and climate change. One of the best ways to combat climate change is through reforestation. Trees absorb carbon dioxide, which is the main gas cause global warming. Reforestation helps balance carbon emissions and slows the rise in global temperatures. May nakita akong quote. It's all about, it talks about the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Anyone, regardless of age and status, can contribute to this cause through sustainable consumption practices, supporting eco-friendly projects, participating in reforestation like magplant of kahoy, and advocating for pro-climate policies. By raising awareness, educating others, and fostering for culture of love for forests, we can combat deforestation and preserve our planet's biodiversity. Addressing deforestation requires proactive measures from all stakeholders, from policymakers to individuals. By collectively taking action, we can mitigate the impacts of deforestation and ensure a sustainable future for generations to come. Thank you. That would be all. Thank you.